This is Oklahoma Sierra Club, and we're joined today by advocates and experts on renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, public transit, and clean water. And these are all issues that are dear to our organization's heart. I know this time of year at the Capitol things get heated and things get kind of down to battle mode, but we're basically here today in honor of Valentine's Day that's approaching, just to share our love of Oklahoma. We're holding this press conference to talk about actions that make Oklahoma a healthier, a cleaner, and a more economically viable state. With Valentine's Day approaching, the intention today is simply to let Oklahoma legislators know Sierra Club members are Oklahoma citizens first and foremost, and we care deeply about Oklahoma. That's the reason we are out here. Members showed up today to proclaim our love for the state and wanted to call some attention to issues that are important to us. And we have some speakers joining us. We're going to have first former Attorney General Drew Edmondson. He's going to speak on water.
Woo!
We're going to have...
Yeah, very appropriate.
It is life.
She kind of gives herself away. We have an urban beekeeper with us today. Stephanie Jordan is going to talk to us about local food production and pollination. We have Jeff Bezdek, MAPS 3 Transit Subcommittee and Education Director for Modern Transit Project, talking about the Oklahoma City Streetcar project. And we also have Steve Wilke. He's going to talk to us about both solar and wind energy and the importance to Oklahoma. So appreciate you all being here, and I would like to bring Mr. Edmondson up here to the podium. Thank you. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure for me to be here on several counts. One of which is to join hands once again with my friends at the Sierra Club, who have done so much in Oklahoma to protect our air, our water, and our land. And the other is to particularly talk about water, which has been an area of concern and interest for me for many years, actually going back to childhood. And we fought many battles during the 16 years that I was Attorney General of the state of Oklahoma that were centered on water. Worrying about spills from hog farms in northwestern Oklahoma, worried about pollution of surface water in northeastern Oklahoma from massive poultry operations, worried about injection wells in central Oklahoma, all of these concerns, and worried about the state of Texas trying to steal our water. All of those things were of concern during the time that I was Attorney General, but my interest goes back further than that. When he was a United States Senator, Robert S. Kerr wrote a book called Land, Wood, and Water, which was kind of a Bible of natural resources in the state of Oklahoma. And those who've ever crossed the McClellan-Kerr waterway know that water was a particular interest of Senator Kerr. There's a Robert S. Kerr Reservoir, of course, that bears his name. In this book, Land, Wood, and Water, Kerr said the following: "It is in our power, under the watchful eyes of God, to determine the physical form of the world in which we live. We can make it a paradise of land, wood, and water, or by neglect permit it to become a desert. The choice is ours," which was prescient, I think, because he wrote this before 1969, when the Cuyahoga River in the state of Ohio between Akron and Cleveland caught on fire, and really raised the consciousness of the nation about the damage that we were doing to our natural resources, and particularly our water. It was actually brought home to me personally a little earlier than that, but still in the 60s, when my younger brother and I decided to try to build a raft and go out on a branch of the Potomac River called Dogue Run. And of course, we fell in. But what's not, of course, and what is not typical in the state of Oklahoma, and hopefully is not typical anywhere in the United States today, we had to get a tetanus shot because the water of the Potomac was so polluted that there was a danger of infection from simply getting in the water. Well, that led to things like the Clean Water Act that passed in the 70s, and that also led to scrutiny by organizations like the Sierra Club, who were concerned about the progress of our water. Since this is a day of love, I won't talk about hog farms and poultry operations anymore. The record is fairly clear on my position on that. I will tell one more anecdotal story. When I was in the Navy, I lived in Kingsville, Texas, and there was nearby Kingsville, it wasn't in Kingsville, but it was nearby, a Celanese chemical plant. And when the air was moving in the right direction, that plant could be smelled in Kingsville, Texas, and it had a rather profound impact on air quality. Later, there was an article in Texas Monthly where a Texas legislator was asked about that kind of pollution in the state of Texas, and his reply was, "We can stand a little crud in our lungs if the price is right." Well, that is not the attitude of the Sierra Club. That is not my attitude. That was not the attitude of John Weir when he founded the Sierra Club over 120 years ago. When it was founded, it was primarily aimed at things like land and wood. It was primarily aimed at setting aside different areas for public viewing and protection and recreation. The protection of our forests was a primary goal of the Sierra Club. Today, the areas of interest are broader, and they are also interested in the air and the water. So we've gone full circle from the Sierra Club first being interested in land and wood, and now also being interested in water and air. Let me close my remarks with the admonition that's in the book of Genesis, and that is the commandment of all of us to be good stewards of the earth. And for the last 120 some odd years, there's been no better steward of our earth than the Sierra Club, and I'm proud to be with them here today.
Thank you.
Stephanie Jordan, urban beekeeper.
I think we've cleared the room of bees, so we're good. So, brought my little stopwatch because once I start talking about the bees, it's hard to get me to stop. So, there we go. So, I love bees, and my bees love me most of the time. Sierra Club loves bees, and they've done a lot to help the bees because the bees need a lot of help right now. As most of you know, that we're having a huge crisis among our beekeepers, and not everybody understands the magnitude of what can happen if we lose our bees. 1/3 of everything we put in our mouth comes to us through bees, and a lot of people think that that means watermelon and apples, but it means a lot of other things. It's also alfalfa, so it touches our meat. It also is our coffee, which is pretty important to some people. But bees have a lot of other functions besides just the things that we harvest from them to eat. Their venom is a very useful therapy for people with MS and arthritis. Bee venom therapy has been really, really helpful in the medical community. Bees also produce something called propolis. A lot of you right now are really struggling with cedar allergies, but the bees collect sap and pollen from the cedar trees and create something called propolis, which they use as a caulking inside their hive. They put it on everything, and it's really hard to get things unstuck once they put it on there. But the medical community uses this to treat things like MRSA. And for those of you that are not familiar with that, that's the flesh-eating bacteria that is medicine resistant. So, they perform several key functions. They're also just really cool, and they make honey. So it takes the life's work of 12 bees to make 1 teaspoon of honey. So this represents the life's work of 2,300 bees. I feel kind of bad for doing it. But they had a whole lot more, so it's cool. Most bees are female. There are very few male bees in the hive. Bee pollination is responsible for more than $15 billion in increased crop value each year. So besides just being worried for them and appreciating their food, they add a lot of financial value to this country. So what can we do? What can we do to take care of our bees? Well, you can become a beekeeper, but that's a little extreme for a lot of you. One thing we could do is we could just leave our dandelions alone in the yard. Lots of people, we've kind of become obsessed with having a dandelion-free yard, and that kind of equaling some sort of status and some sort of good neighbor policy. But the dandelions are one of the first foods that bees can eat. Our bees have just gotten through a really difficult winter. It got very cold very fast, and they use up a lot of their honey stores when it's that cold, trying to stay warm. Right now, the bees are changing the temperature inside their hive from 85 degrees to around 93 degrees because the queen has started laying again. And so that takes a lot more honey. On the days that it warms up really early, like it is right now because the weather's become so unpredictable, the bees will go out flying and looking for forage, which hasn't happened yet because it's the wrong time of the season, and they use a lot of energy and need to come back and eat a bunch more honey and don't have nectar to show for it. So dandelions are one of the first things that they eat. If you're uncomfortable leaving your dandelions alone, you could spray in the evening. After the bees have already gone to bed, just spray right before sunset. Other things that you can do is you can watch for upcoming legislation that has to do with pollinators. So thank you, SB 229. SB 229 was a bill that's introduced to create a pollinator protection master plan. And it was not introduced by a hippie or a beekeeper. The guy that introduced it is a Republican senator from Chickasha, I think. And he is a retired ag extension agent, so he knows what it is to farm. The other thing that you can do is you can come to Sierra Club Cimarron Group's upcoming meeting May 21st, which is going to be on monarchs and mason bees, and learn about the kinds of bees that are really easy for you to take care of. All you do is just put out a nest. If you'd like to know more about what you can do to take care of the bees, you can come talk to me. Other things that are really important that you might not think of as touching bees are to buy local, sustainably raised produce. Most of the farmers at the farmers market have bees on their property, not necessarily their own, but somebody else's. Even the people that make soap at the farmers market have somebody's beehive on their property. So they're kind of a symbiotic relationship, but also those farmers are taking great care to ensure that the bees are protected and they're not putting things that on their crops that will harm them or harm us. So get to know the farmer that grows your food, shake their hand. If you see a beekeeper, thank them, and try to put a little food out for the bees this year. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeff Bezdek, and I'm with the City of Oklahoma City Modern Transit Project, and it's an absolute honor to speak to you today about our progress with urban public transit in the greater Oklahoma City area, namely with MAPS 3, which is Metropolitan Area Projects. And in 2017, we will have a renewal of MAPS and potentially even more public transit. But I'm here to speak to you today about our past vote, 2009, in which the citizens taxed themselves not only for urban transit, but improvements such as parks, a new convention center, sidewalks, and trails throughout the city, and senior wellness centers for health and vitality throughout our city at 4 different locations. Sierra Club is absolutely a profound asset to our national discussion about public transit. And Oklahoma City has languished in investing in public transit since 1947, when the original streetcar network and interurban lines that connected our communities were torn out, and buses replaced those lines. But what we've realized is we have to make a permanent investment in our future. And the growth projections for the greater metropolitan area are undeniable. We are growing at such a rate that this city will become more congested. It will have greater air quality concerns. There will be a socioeconomic impact by simply enabling people to get from the suburbs to work and through the urban area outwards. And so we have begun with our 2009 initiative to start to reinvest in ourselves. And we're reinvesting by building a downtown light rail streetcar system, which will serve as a nucleus, hopefully, for a future broader rail network that connects Edmond to Norman, Midwest City to downtown, all the areas of major employment that parallel the highways that we currently have. And there are other initiatives to build additional transit throughout our city. And what are we talking about when we talk about transit? Well, we're talking about an all-above solution, being buses, streetcars, commuter rail, and bus rapid transit. And those four modes are what are proposed in this master plan, which is all connected together by the Santa Fe Station facility, which is in downtown Oklahoma City next to Brooktown. And that facility just received an award from the National Sierra Club as being one of the top 25 transportation projects in 2014. And we also received the first FTA grant of $14.5 million to supplement the funds that we've already collected. So to start, we are building a $150 million system, and it's a phase one project with essentially a downtown streetcar that runs on rails that are embedded in the ground and powered by electricity, quiet, clean, without any pollution created in our central city, that comes by every 10 to 12 minutes at stops that are prescribed throughout the greater downtown area. And hopefully that system will be expanded, and as it goes into the Santa Fe facility, it will interface with currently the Heartland Flyer and our reinvigorated Embark bus system, which just received an overhaul in Oklahoma City. The station facility itself is designed for commuter rail, potential high-speed rail, and then bus rapid transit. So as not only Oklahoma grows, but as the region grows, Texas and Kansas City, we may see greater inner-city connectivity in which the streetcar will serve. We're very excited. We're about to award actually the contract for the streetcars, which is the same company that is making the streetcars for Seattle, Portland, Tacoma, many of the cities you think of as having great urban transit. And the project will be complete in 2018, and we hope that all of you ride it.
Hi, my name's Steve Wilke. I'm from Delta Energy and Design. We are a developer of residential and commercial scale solar projects here in the state of Oklahoma. So I'm really excited about the opportunity to be here with the Sierra Club. It's an organization near and dear to me. The theme of today's activities is things that the Sierra Club loves. One of the things that I believe, and I think you guys would acknowledge, that the Sierra Club loves is renewable energy. Simply put, we love wind and solar because they're good for us and they're good for our children. Sort of like eating your vegetables. I'd kind of like to talk about wind and solar on a large macro scale and then bring it down to a more personal level very briefly. Wind and solar are good for the world. Each time a large wind turbine or a 2 megawatt solar system is installed, we eliminate the pollution from 71 million pounds of coal. We create the atmospheric equivalent of planting 1.7 million trees. And we reduce the pollution equal to 7 million gallons of gasoline. Wind and solar are good for the world. Wind and solar are good for our country. The wind and solar industries directly employ hundreds of thousands of people and indirectly employ hundreds of thousands more across the United States, particularly in rural areas where jobs may be harder to come by and where we'd like to keep our kids closer to home. The highest quality, most reliable wind and solar equipment is made right here in the United States. We can take back the manufacturing jobs that we've lost overseas when we expand renewable energy. Wind and solar provides us with energy security and protection against the weaknesses of centralized generation. It's important to our overall energy security. Wind and solar are good for our country. Wind and solar are good for Oklahoma. Wind energy employs thousands of Okies all over the state, again, in rural areas where our youth may be leaving and where we'd like to retain them. Wind energy saves us all money. According to PSO, the wind contracts that they've signed will save their ratepayers over $53 million in the first year alone. And solar energy reduces the stress on the grid when it's needed most, and it can alleviate the need for building new, expensive infrastructure to meet peak demand. Wind and solar are good for Oklahoma. Wind and solar are good for your community. The taxes paid by wind projects in rural areas provide a much needed financial boost to rural areas across our state. And the energy you produce with your solar panels helps reduce the demand from your neighbors. It reduces their demand for fossil fuel-based energy during the time when it's needed most, where the grid is most stressed. You make extra when they need it most. Wind and solar are good for your community. Finally, wind and solar, they're good for you and your family. Installing a solar system allows you to save money, and it turns a variable, ever-increasing cost into an asset rather than a liability. Installing solar systems lets you lock your electricity rates for the next 20 years at a rate lower than you pay today. Installing wind or solar allows you to take personal responsibility for your energy choices. You get to decide where your energy comes from. And installing wind or solar sets a good example for your children. One that demonstrates personal responsibility and a commitment to the future. Wind and solar are good for your family and good for the world. There's a lot to love about renewable energy, and I would like to thank the Sierra Club for the opportunity to bring those points out. Thank you.
I'd like to ask our four speakers to step over here if you don't mind. And I selfishly would love for someone